again. Today, thank you and welcome to joining us. My name's Tamara Prosper, and today we're going to be exploring female genital mutilation in the Commonwealth. I'm joined today by Nora Ali, the Executive Director of Allies Network and member of Birmingham Commonwealth Association Communities Committee, and also PC Gillian Squires of the West Midlands Police Force, the FGM lead. Also, we have Sophia Saheed, founder and executive director of the Reach Up charity based in Sheffield. Thank you all for joining us. Hello, ladies. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah. Thank you.
Can I go to you first of all, PC? A bit about your work and your role in supporting FGM.
Yeah, absolutely. You were right first time on DC.
DC, sorry.
Constable.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. My role at the police force is a detective constable within the Child Abuse Investigation Unit. However, since 2009, I've been subject matter expert for female genital mutilation. Now, don't get me wrong, before 2009, I knew very, very little about FGM. And through networking and through working with partner organisations, have learnt much more. Also, crucially, with survivors of FGM as well. So my role really has been on a strategic basis along policy as well as the practical operational side. Currently, I work within the Birmingham Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub. So I work with children's services, with health. We see child abuse cases that come through the front door at children's services, and we will look at what we know about these cases and decide the course of action therein. And of course, any cases within Birmingham around FGM will come through that same pathway. Unless, however, you may be aware of something called mandatory reporting, which is where a regulated professional is told by a child they have FGM, or they see what they think to be FGM, for example, health professionals, and then that would be referred directly to the police, mandated by law. My FGM isn't just my job, it's my passion. It's something I do inside and outside of work, and I do it because I care. I care about this issue, and I care about the communities that we as a police service serve. So to give you an idea of the sorts of things that West Midlands Police have been doing over that time, you might be aware of Operation Sentinel, which is an operation around hidden crime, and FGM being one of those hidden crimes. And in actual fact, you could say that any area of public protection business is crime, whether that's domestic abuse, child abuse, whether it's FGM, whether it's honour-based abuse, forced marriage, modern slavery, child sexual exploitation, all of these issues are hidden. So Sentinel, what it is, it's aimed at increasing awareness within the police, but also increasing awareness with partners in the community. So together, and that is crucial here, is that we can only do something, we can only make significant change if we work together as a partnership. Really can't emphasise that enough. The police on their own need information from partner agencies and from communities to be able to do something about this. And I'm not just talking about prosecution, which of course is very important and sends an important message to those who still believe in this practice, that it will not go unnoticed and unprosecuted. However, but it's also about, crucially, about protecting this happening, to stop it happening to those girls and women before it happens. Once it's happened, that is something they've got to live with for life. So trying to stop that before it happens is really, really important. And again, part of the police role is about protecting our communities. Now, I know that there is perhaps a reluctance from communities seeing police as the law enforcers, but really what we need to be seen as is a police force who are there to help you protect yourselves and protect your children. And we can do that. There are other organisations that can do that. But in terms of things like, for example, Fgm Protection Orders, which I've worked with the Home Office Fgm unit on for an 8-month period, going around the country, making sure that agencies and communities are aware of these orders and aren't afraid of them, because they're not something to be afraid of. It's really crucial that the police are seen as somebody who can help you, not just somebody who is going to, put parents in prison, or, we really need to know where this is happening. We know that it happens in communities. We know that it's something we're constantly learning about. So other communities that might be practicing it, we are not closed to think that it's only certain communities. And we also know that there is also a rising opposition to the practice within communities, and we want to help and support those individuals to say no, because we know that it's not just the families, that it's the communities as well around them that puts that pressure on them. Sorry.
Yes. Now you mentioned quite extensively about the impact and the relationship between communities. We are very fortunate today to have one of the experts within Birmingham, Nora Ali from Allies Network, who directly works with the community on the subject of female genital mutilation. And I'd like to welcome her and also ask her again to tell you a little bit about her work and how she supports victims with that are experiencing and suffering from FGM. Welcome, Nora.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Executive Director of Allies Network, which is an organisation that's commissioned by the West Midlands Police and Crime Commission through its Ministry of Justice Commissioning. And we support FGM survivors and victims from Commonwealth and non-Commonwealth communities. And we've been doing that for the past 6 years within the contract. Coming from a practicing community myself, having been scared as a child to be cut within England, and having people around me be cut, and having people who were cut not being able to understand where to report or where to go to. It's very ironic now that I am the one that's in the saving and in the career that I am, because it's not just about keeping them safe, it's actually keeping me safe. It's empowering me to have that voice, that as a child I was helpless with nobody around, nothing on television to see. If you go to school, there's nobody talking about it. And even though my parents decided not to cut me because it was my father who was educated, my mom came from a farming background, and therefore he was able to tell her the reasons why in health, why she would be affected by it, and why I'm affected by it if that happened to me. Now that's my personal story. So I do understand that FGM is a family root, and it's been practiced before religion. And obviously it's a form of control, to control a woman to behave, to control a woman to be the rights to womanhood, to keep them clean for religious purposes, the reason why it's called Sunnah type 1. to other reasons like cosmetic and just to keep the husband satisfactory. There's many reasons why the practice happens, and in some countries it's medicalized. Unfortunately, we can't do that. We can't do anything about that in the UK because it's political. But what we know that it's illegal in Europe and the UK and a lot more countries. So we do tell women to report the crime where they can see it. Of course, it's very hard for a woman to report a crime when she doesn't know where to go for safety, because there isn't a place of safety that they can be taken to, like the domestic violence, like sexual abuse, like in all the other areas that have had support over the years. It's a very new emerging new area, and it needs resources that we will talk about later. And with those resources, I think there would be a bit more change into how and when people report the crime. So what we offer in Allies Network is one-to-one advice and guidance service where anybody can come in. It's completely confidential, and you will be supported through a journey in terms of what are your needs. So there would be a care plan, and you'd be able to disclose what you want to disclose. It's not something that you have to disclose. And we also have support group sessions across Birmingham. But of course, due to resourcing, we'd have to stay within Birmingham rather than the West Midlands as we were commissioned before. And they are very popular support sessions, and a lot of women have learned a lot from each person's culture, because FGM is practiced depending on that person's culture, and 29 African countries and 12 Commonwealth countries. You can imagine the vibrancy in all their different cultures and all the different types that they may practice. And of course, there are different categories like type 1, type 2, and type 3 and type 4. But I think that there are about 30 types of FGM that are practiced, but of course, due to resources, again, it can't be all differentiated in their own category. So effectively, we say that anyone who needs support can contact us through our website, through phone. You know, you can be referred by a friend or an organization, and we are here to help.
Thank you, Nora. You both mentioned that publicity in the media have a huge impact on race. I was wondering if you could perhaps tell us about your approaches to raise awareness and also about the results that you've received in your time in office.
Sorry, you were broken up in the last little bit there. Could you repeat that?
Yes, of course. I was just asking whether or not you could tell us about the approaches that you have implemented with regards to raising awareness around the issues of FGM and also the results that you have seen so far. Okay, all right. Raising awareness, I think I've told you a little bit already about Operation Sentinel. Approach, and all officers are aware of that and working with that. So on the ground, it's very much going out there, as well as on the West Midlands police site, and also where we can, we will advertise things in the media around Sentinel and encouraging people to report to us. Although I do understand the reasons why people might not want to call the police about this issue. Other ways of raising awareness are we run an operations option Limelight, which is at the airports. It's a national operation which we've taken part in as the West Midlands for the last 5 or 6 years. What we approach passengers exiting the country at Birmingham Airport, but also at the end of the summer holidays, we look at approaching planes which are coming back from who may have been their hub flights from countries which
which may practice FGM. So this isn't just about targeting those individuals who may be at risk or may have undergone FGM. It's about raising awareness in general. And very often what we get teachers or nurses, for example, who come through, and we'll talk to them about FGM, raising their awareness. And you know what the great thing is that we also talk to children. Children are the ones who need to be empowered around this, and it's about speaking in a child-centered way. And it's what's been really, really great for me is that schools have clearly been introducing this into the syllabus, because children are telling us that they know about FGM when they come through the airport. So it's a really good way of highlighting the issue. It's also a good way of us being proactive in terms of trying to identify people, children or adults, who may have gone through FGM, not just because of the prosecution aspect, but also signposting to people like Neura, who, you know, giving them the details. We have a leaflet within Force in several different languages, which has got contacts on the back of organisations that are there to support you. We see many adults who have undergone FGM themselves, not where a crime has been committed, because it will be before they've come to the UK, but we can signpost them to help so that they can reach out and receive, whether that's psychological or physical health support. So that in terms of raising awareness, we're also involved on the national perspective, raising awareness. And as I said, I had as a comment at the Home Office, working around Fgm Protection Orders, which was going around the UK really, raising those protection orders. In terms of results, it depends what you class as results really. Over the past 2 years, we've had 122 referrals through to West Midlands Police. Now, whenever I say that and the media are involved, the media will say, well, you know, we've only had one prosecution in the UK. How is that the case if you've had 122 referrals? Well, the answer to that in some way is because most of those 122 referrals are those children who are at risk. It's unlikely that a parent will tell us that they intend to have their child cut. But what we can't measure is things like Limelight, things like Sentinel, if they've had a preventative role, because people know that we know and that we will prosecute, okay, and that there are people who are watching out and who can identify the signs of a child who might be about to undergo FGM or who already has undergone FGM. So we've got to quantify how many children we've protected really through those measures, and also with Fgm Protection Orders, with children's services and those assessments being carried out by children's services. Again, you know, we can't say how many children we will have prevented this happening to. I will tell you, if that's okay, very briefly about a case that I was involved with, where there were a couple of children. We had information coming to us that there were some children in a particular country in Africa. I'm not going to go into any details about my family, but there were 2 children being left in Africa, in a particular country where FGM is practiced. And the information we had was that Mum was coming back to the UK and leaving the girls there. She didn't agree with FGM. She didn't want FGM for the children, but she left them there because her family were basically got to have FGM. She didn't want to see them being harmed, being hurt. And so we knew that she was coming back into the country. I obtained an Fgm Protection Order, which I served on her when she came back into the UK. And what that order was, the judge said that the children had to be brought back into the UK within a set period of time, unharmed. And within that week, the children were returned. They were medically examined. Children's services obviously were involved, and they hadn't been cut. Now, we will never know whether they were going to be cut, but what we can say now is that those children are protected by that order, at least until the age that they're 18. So there are cases like that where we can say, yeah, they haven't been cut. But the other thing to mention is and I'm sorry I'm going off at a bit of a tangent. I'm passionate about this, so I will. But what I also think is that medical examinations are right in the right place at the right time, but not in every case, because it's invasive and it's intrusive and it's abusive in its own right. So we wouldn't have those medical examinations in all cases. But that's just to give you an example of a time perhaps where we have intervened as a multi-agency approach, and where we have seen a result where a child hasn't been cut, but they are protected by an order. Does that make sense?
That does, and thank you. And one child saved is a huge success. Can I take the same question?
Absolutely.
Can I take the same question to Nora, and also ask slightly differently, but how would you like to see media and publicity around your area of FGM as a specialty, and what results have you seen achieved by the awareness that has been generated at this point, Nora?
Right. Yes, I would like to see a bit more positive stories within the media around practicing communities, because too often we are dehumanized, we are an ethnic minority, we are part of a religion that is discriminated. There's many reasons to why the media at the moment is a bit toxic, and you have a negative story to give all the time about an FGM survivor or victim, nothing around their culture that is positive. And I often do training sessions for professionals, and obviously within schools in the past that we've done. And professionals have no positive idea about that particular community which they are serving, to be able to build rapport. That's the problem. When somebody from a different community can see that you're going to ask them about intimate questions about their private parts, because that's what it is, and you are a bit nervous in your body language, and you don't know how to lead on to the conversation because you don't know what they eat, you don't know what they wear, you don't know what music they listen to. There's no conversation in between that is compassionate to the person, in order for the person to relax and relieve that information. And of course, they will walk away from that surgery, that school, that court, or wherever they may have seen that individual with a negative connotation, and go back into the community and say, oh, I've been to an appointment today and it was really horrible, and they tried to ask me about this in a really horrible way, so I'm not going to go back. And that's really bad, because you're not going to have a lot of communities coming back into your service or institution to receive the support that they actually deserve, that they need, just because they had a negative experience. So a lot of the time, I'm actually helping professionals learn about culture, learn about the positive things about that person's culture, in order to bring them back to being human. That's when you will have breakthrough. And that's what we teach in terms of our professional training. Because a lot of online training is around what is FGM and the technicalities, and what it does and the health effects. And they are, professional in their careers, but they may not know how to build that rapport, especially GPs. They're seeing many, many different patients, and they haven't got that time to get to know probably that individual a bit better. So having that bespoke training package that we provide is what a lot of professionals appreciate, and have given us positive feedback around. And especially in schools as well, when you're doing a session with young people and they are learning about Africa for the first time in their history, they're learning something very negative that Africa is doing, but they're not learning within their classrooms anything positive that Africa is doing. So of course, they're not going to be nice in the playground. They're not going to feel as if that person is the same as them. They're going to feel that they're inferior to that person and treat them in an inferior way. And that will create more abuse within schools than anything. So these are the type of things that we've noted, and we try to work around the issue because we know what FGM is, we know where we can find that information. It's everywhere online, but it's more about how do you work with these communities that is not being talked about. And the word cultural sensitivity is just another word of learn that person's culture. That's the layman terminology for it, I think, in the way that, because a lot of people don't know how to be culturally sensitive. What do you mean by culturally sensitive? And they're able to ask these questions, and we're able to give the answers that we can to be able to help them understand those communities. And what was the other question, Tamara?
I was asking about raising publicity, and also if you felt the results of the current publicity has kind of aided has impacted the community in the way that you would like it to. So yes, has it yielded results that you'd like?
Not yet. And until we have an understanding within institutions and chief executives and directors taking time to learn what is FGM and what is it that their workforce is suffering. Because currently FGM is not just within the community works within institutions, the community is a doctor, the community is an ambassador, the community is a president. It's not about just somebody on a job seekers who is a refugee community that needs to know about this. It's every level of institutions across the UK needs to take time to learn about these communities. And I think, you know, in terms of Black Lives Matter, I hope that helps in that movement, because obviously there are lots of things similar to what we're talking about institutions need to know. So yes, that's my answer.
Obviously, we've got this wonderful platform today that's been provided, and I would like to use this opportunity to also make those that are not aware of the experiences long-term for FGM survivors, the long-term health consequences, and those hidden mental health issues also associated with this procedure. Can I direct that first of all to yourself, Nora? Could you elaborate possibly on this area and how the organisations within the city are able to support?
Well, during this time of COVID, we've had 12 community deaths. Some service users, some immediate family contacts to the service users. And across England, we know about 50 community deaths. These are FGM survivors or their families from non-Commonwealth or Commonwealth communities. And prior to COVID, we have come to do a bit of research around the health needs of an FGM survivor and victim. And we often speak about the equipment that is used within procedures that may not be right for that woman's anatomy because she's been cut and obviously there's things wrong in those parts. But we don't talk about the deeper biological and biochemistry of a woman who has been cut to a woman who hasn't. And what we found is that they've done research in Germany, because obviously in Europe they're a bit more advanced in what communities need in terms of healthcare that we found with our service users reported. And what we found was that FGM survivors and victims have an increase of cortisol hormone. An increase of cortisol hormone will create loss of oxygen and nutrients. And therefore, a person may come across more depressant, a bit more achy in the body, You can imagine a woman who already hasn't got the vitamins she needs because the body's flushing it out constantly. So whatever she's eating or whatever she's drinking or whatever she's taking in terms of minerals is being flushed out faster than a normal woman who hasn't been cut. So therefore, they're more prone to many different types of illnesses. And if the NHS understood this, not only they would be able to help communities during COVID, but they would also be able to understand that some of the clinical things that they're suffering, like diabetes, cholesterol, blood pressure, cancerous, effects, they'd be able to understand how to treat these women. And if they treated them early on, these women would then be able to pass that knowledge to their children, which may suffer the same effects, but we're not aware of. It's costing the NHS millions and millions of pounds nationally and internationally, actually. And it's an area to be learned, and we are looking for people to help us in terms of getting resources to do more research around that area, so FGM survivors can not only physically but mentally and within their biological bodies can get the support they need.
Thank you. And DC Squires, I was wondering what your thoughts were in terms of, for victims again, once they have reported and are looking for a safe space, what are the provisions, particularly within the West Midlands of where you're located? Could you explain to us, first of all, the process as much as you can of reporting, and also safe housing, and if there are enough facilities for those survivors?
Thank you. If somebody wanted to report something to the police or wanted to seek support, you can go onto the West Midlands Police website, which has got links for non-government organisations, charities that would be able to assist you. If you call 101, appreciate there's a very long waiting time at the moment on 101, but there is an opportunity for you to web chat, or I think my email address is available as well. It's specifically about FGM and it's not reporting a crime, you just want some advice, then please, you're more than welcome to contact me on that as a subject matter expert. The process would be that you would call the police, you'd get an operator who would talk to you and ask you about your concerns, and then generally the majority of FGM referrals that we have are about children rather than about adults. However, when we do have those referrals, invariably parents are involved in terms of grandparents, in terms of having had FGM themselves, and as part of the course of that investigation for that child, we would automatically speak to support available for them. In terms of support that is available, one more thing before I go any further. If somebody was reporting because they're worried about a uniformed size 9 police shoes going into somebody's house and you know, whipping children out and all of that sort of stuff, that isn't how we deal with FGM. We would be dealing with this within a child abuse investigation unit who are plain clothes like me, are detectives who are aware of the sensitivities and work with children's services. So, you know, unless we felt that a child was at risk of immediate, and it would have to be immediate significant harm, then we won't be taking children out of families straight away like that. So let me kind of in terms of support, we work very closely with an organisation called Birmingham Against FGM, which is a project panel where we have all sorts of agencies, as it says, involved. We work with Alison Byrne, who is a midwife from the African Well Women's Clinic, which is based at Heartlands Hospital. Now, she set that up of her own will about 15 years ago. and it was very little known of back then, but something that is available for anybody who's had FGM. It is within the maternity services. However, it's available for anyone who has undergone FGM to be able to seek that support and guidance and further referrals if psychological assessments or help is required. That is something that they can assist with there. So there is also a clinic at the Women's Hospital in Birmingham. I think there's one at City Road Hospital now as well. And a Sunflower Clinic, which is specifically for those who aren't pregnant. I think that's based at City Road Hospital. Those who aren't pregnant might feel a bit of a stigma going into a maternity unit to seek help. In terms of organisations, there are local organisations like Neura, again signposted on our site. But also the national organisations also, have that national reach. So they might not be based in Birmingham, but they may well be able to help people in Birmingham. So, there are services there available. What I would suggest, there is a Home Office resource page for FGM. Whether you're professionals, whether you're community members, Google it, have a look. Home Office resource, FGM resource. It's got everything that you need there, whether you're a teacher, a nurse, a community member. It's got Home Office guidelines on there. It's got about Fgm Protection Orders. It's got good practice on there. It's got about organisations that can come and deliver FGM awareness raising within schools, like the Freedom Charity, Forge UK, Integrate UK can do that. I'm not sure if that's something that Neura actually be able to advise them afterwards. But also I would absolutely recommend that in terms of support, Twitter, social media are huge. Have a look online, people like Leila Hussain, Sarian Kamara, Hoda Ali, who are on Twitter, who are very vocal and who speak out about their own experiences of having undergone FGM. And some people, I know that they find it quite therapeutic to be able to empower others, to protect others, using their negative experiences for the good, if that makes sense. But again, there's also a video called A Change Has Begun, which is available on YouTube, which is a 20-minute video, which basically will tell you all you need to know about FGM, including the health implications, and it's told by survivors themselves about how it's impacted on them. So yeah, I think there are things out there available, but it's finding them. So the first point of call, I would say, is either the West Midlands Police website or the Home Office resource page, FGM Resource Pack, which will give you a broad scope and somewhere to start, basically, or contact me directly and I can signpost.
Sure. And Nora, can I ask you a similar question? Is there any designated FGM safe houses within the city that you're aware of?
Yes. No, because currently the institutions support domestic violence, sexual violence, other themes of crime in terms of safe houses or supported accommodation. There isn't any across England that I'm aware of that are specific for FGM survivors and victims, and that's probably because of resources. FGM is a new emerging area, and it just depends if the government wants to invest in it. Currently, I've heard that over the summer break, we've had the one national centre, which is the FGM centre, looking to close in London. So that shows the commitment of the government in terms of FGM area.
And in closing, ladies, if I can go back to DC Squires, if you can give us your thoughts as to what your hopes are for the next coming years in this area, and how organisations within the city can support you in achieving the goals that will safeguard future generations.
Thank you. And to start off, that it is the government's pledge to end FGM within a generation, and they have done an awful lot to tackle FGM over the last 4 or 5 years. The National FGM Centre, which Noura mentioned there, I understand that there are funding issues there, but it's not closed at the moment. And again, a great place for people to go for information. So please look at the National FGM Centre. In terms of working together, child safeguarding, which is what this is, FGM has to be child abuse. It's everybody's responsibility to safeguard children, and nobody can do that on their own. We have to work together. So it is for communities, for professionals, to not be afraid of having those conversations. I know it's a hidden crime, it's something that's difficult to talk about, it's difficult to get any information, but we need to be not afraid. Yes, we need to be culturally sensitive, but this is child abuse, and we need to stop it happening to young girls. We need to support families, stop it happening to their own children, because I know many, many families don't want this to happen.
Can I ask Noura, finally, if we could just mention about the professional training and engaging schools and how people can get in touch with yourself as an organisation to get that into their businesses?
Yes, our organisation is Allies Network. It's based in Birmingham, Bozo Heath. It can cover the West Midlands, but obviously due to capacity, we have to take appointments based. So people can get in touch with us through phone, our email info@allies-network.com, and look us up at our website www.alliesnetwork/network.com. And yes, we do ask people to contact us, and we will see how we can support you. In terms of professionals and schools, we are available to do training as we get bookings. So please don't hesitate to come to us, and we will give you a very supportive package in terms to meet your needs within your institutions. And I would like to say that Birmingham Commonwealth Association is the organisation that sponsored this session, and we thank them for supporting this cause and the work that we're doing. It's an organisation that is around to support how people collaborate. So I do also encourage those who are listening to come and join, be members, and see what you can benefit. And thank you, Tamara, for hosting us.
You're very welcome. And as I said, my name's Tamara Prosper, and I am the Managing Director here at ARC Foundation, and we look forward to working with you both. DC Squires, thank you for your time today, and Noura Ali from Allies Network. We look forward to seeing you all again in the future. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Take care.